Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is your boy Jay Lade bringing us a brand new 2023 NFL tier ranking video. And in today's tier ranking video, we are going to be tier ranking every single quarterback in the NFL right now. Or not every single quarterback, but a lot of them on how I think they will do in this upcoming 2023 NFL season based on top 3, elite, good, average, bad, or if they will be benched. I do want to say I am sorry for the lack of videos over the last 2 weeks. I was out of state in Washington, and then I was in Disneyland for a couple days. I'm back now, and I'm going to be getting a lot of YouTube videos out, especially on OTAs, on trade rumors, free agency. A lot of that happened with Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Hopkins. A lot of big news coming out over the last couple of days, and when they sign, there's going to be some big news as well. So I'm going to be getting a lot more videos out. I was just kind of on a vacation. I'm back now. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get to the video. So we're going to start with the worst and go to top 3. We're going to go from bench, bad, average, good, elite, top 3, and work our way up. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the bench because we'd be here all day because, as you can tell, there are a lot of players because I'm also doing some backup quarterbacks. I just looked this list up on tier ranking list and found this one. It's the only 2023 to 2024 list with all the rookies, so I figured let's do it. Starting off with the bench, Kyler Murray. I'm putting him on the bench because he's going to be injured. This also includes free agents and injuries. Kyler Murray, I think there's a chance he doesn't play at all next year. They said, like, at best, he could be ready by, like, mid-season. And if I was Kyler Murray, I might just wait till the offseason and request a trade. So Kyler Murray, he's going to be on the bench. I got Ryan Tannehill on the bench. I would be very surprised if he wasn't traded or released by the Titans before the season starts. I think he had, like, a major cap hit. I forgot what it was. And then they just let Malik Willis and Will Levis compete for the starting job. So I wouldn't be surprised if he either rides the bench or is cut. Next up, we got Matt Corral. Same thing. Panthers drafted him in the second round last year, I believe, but I think he's going to be the third stringer behind Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. Then we have Andy Dalton. I think he's going to be on the bench. Same thing with Matt Corral behind Bryce Young. I think he's going to be the second stringer, kind of the serviceable veteran second stringer. Then we have Sam Darnold. I think he's going to be on the bench behind Trey Lance. I do think he will have the starting role over Brock Purdy. Hendon Hooker, same thing. He's going to be on the bench behind Jared Goff. I don't think Hendon Hooker is going to see many snaps within the first year or two. I think he's just going to be a serviceable backup unless Jared Goff either gets injured or is really playing bad, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Jared Goff is going to have probably one of his best years this upcoming season, so I think Hendon Hooker, at least for the first couple of years of his career, is just going to be a serviceable backup. Then we have, I'm drawing a blank right now, Davis Mills. He's going to be the backup behind C.J. Stroud. I doubt he'll start week 1. Brock Purdy, same thing. I actually do think Trey Lance is going to start over Brock Purdy. I know Brock Purdy is rumored and looking like he'll be good to go for week 1. But I think Trey Lance, I think you got to give him a chance, especially considering all that was traded up for Trey Lance, all they gave up. I think it's only fair you give him a fair shot and see what he's capable of. Brock Purdy did look great, so if Trey Lance doesn't pan out, I think, you have a quarterback in Brock Purdy, but I think at least week 1 you try Trey Lance and see how he goes, and especially with the injury concerns. I know it looks like he'll be ready week 1, but just to be safe. Matt Ryan, he's a free agent right now. I'm not sure. I doubt he'll sign. I think he might have even retired. I can't remember, but either way, even who does get signed, I doubt he's going to be playing. Taylor Heinicke, I think they go with Desmond Ridder over Taylor Heinicke. I could be wrong. I haven't seen many reports on who has the starting job right now, but I do believe at the end of the day it will be Desmond Ridder, and I think that's the next step in developing him as their long-term guy if they really believe he can be that. Same thing with Carson Wentz. He's a free agent right now. I said this list includes free agents and injuries. I think Carson Wentz, I'd be very surprised if he signs. I don't see a need for a quarterback right now, like a quarterback market that would be interested in Carson Wentz. I could see him going to like the Raiders maybe if Jimmy Garoppolo's physical doesn't work out. But either way, I don't see him really starting on any team right now. Zach Wilson, same thing, behind Aaron Rodgers. I will say this about Zach Wilson. I do think that 2 to 3 to 4 years when Aaron Rodgers is done, I do think there's a chance he could still be that guy for the Jets, and I do think he could develop and be the long-term answer for the Jets. I know he had a horrible year last year. He hasn't looked great, but I do think if he can develop and improve behind Aaron Rodgers for a few years, I do think there's a chance he could still be the long-term guy, but not now. Finally, Kyle Trask. It looks like Baker Mayfield is going to be the starting guy. So Kyle Trask will be riding the bench as well. Moving on to the bad category, these are mainly quarterbacks that are either rookies coming into a new situation or just have not looked good in OTA. Starting off with Baker Mayfield, there have been not highlights, more like low light videos coming out of their practices. Tampa Bay showing him and Kyle Trask competing for the starting job. Baker Mayfield has looked awful. Kyle Trask has looked awful. Baker Mayfield is struggling with accuracy on like short 5-yard ends. He has not looked good at all, and it's a shame because the Bucs are still a good offense. I mean, they have a decent offensive line. It's not bad. They have a great receiving core: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, a young tight end, and it's a shame because Baker Mayfield, I thought when he signed to Tampa Bay, I thought there, might be hope. Maybe, he can come in and take them to the playoffs again, but it's not looking like that. It's looking like he is going to struggle a lot this upcoming season. Next up, we have Anthony Richardson. Now, I do think within the next 2 to 3 years, Anthony Richardson could be one of the best in the league, but he is a developmental quarterback. I see him like Jalen Hurts, where it's going to be rough for maybe like a year kind of developing, but with Shane Steichen there, I'm very excited. I think he's going to turn Anthony Richardson into Jalen Hurts 2.0. I think, like I said, he's a developmental guy. It's going to be a rough year, but I do think within the next few years, he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Mark my words on that. Next up, we got CJ Stroud. Same thing. I think that within a few years, he's going to be great. I think he's going to be, same thing. He's a project quarterback. He needs to develop a little bit, but he does have the tools to be a good quarterback. He has all the tools he needs. Not all the tools, but, he has a decent receiving core. The offensive line is a little shaky. They did add Shaq Mason, which was a nice upgrade, but there are still some holes on that offensive line. I think CJ Stroud is just going to take him a little bit of time with most rookies. I mean, that's just normal. So that's why most of the rookies are going to be here. Next up, we have Will Levis. This is one where I think not only is Will Levis in a developmental situation where it could take him like a year or two, kind of like Josh Allen, where it's going to be really rough, but he's also in a pretty bad offense, one of the worst receiving corps in the league and one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And I actually felt pretty bad for Will Levis when he was taken to the Titans because it was like the worst scenario possible in just the sense that the Titans are one of the worst offenses in the league. So you're putting, and it looks like Will Levis probably is going to be the starter, it seems like, for the Titans, right? As of now, it's what it seems like it's going to be, and it's just going to be rough. He's a developmental guy, same thing with most rookies, and he's also on a pretty horrible offense, and I mean, that's just, it's a pretty rough start for a young guy like that, so hopefully within the next couple of years he can develop, but at least for this year, it's going to be rough. Next up to my final bad start to the season, or bad season, I have Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love, again, same thing. I think he's going to be good, but it's a very young team. And I've said this in some of my other videos. The Packers offense, it is so young. The receiving core is so young. I think the oldest kind of starting receiver is like Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs, and they're only going into their second year. It's just a very young offense. And don't get me wrong, I think within the next couple of years, same thing. Once that offense meshes together and they kind of develop and get on the same page, I think it could be a great offense. But I mean, when you're quote unquote veteran, like older receivers are going into their sophomore years with a young quarterback who's now taking over a franchise after the veteran quarterback left and Aaron Rodgers, that's just going to be tough. So I do think, it's going to be a little rough for Jordan Love. I think it's going to be rough for that whole offense, but in time, I do think they will form together to be a very good offense. Moving on to the next category, we have average, and starting off, I'm putting Sam Howell in average. I know that may shock a lot of you, like, how is Sam Howell in average? Some people don't even have him starting. Some people have Jacoby Brissett starting, but I am very high on Sam Howell. I'm probably higher on him than most people, but I think with Eric Bieniemy now as the offensive coordinator, who is great, and Washington has weapons. They have Terry McLaurin, but they also have Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas. I mean, it's not a bad receiving core, and I think with Eric Bieniemy there to help that offense now, Sam Howell going into his second year, I do think the ceiling for this offense is very high, and I do think they will shock a lot of people at just how good. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be like superstar offense that they're going to be putting up, 40 points a game, but I do think this offense does have potential with Sam Howell at the helm. Seems like a lot of the guys like him. Terry McLaurin spoke very highly at him at an OTA practice a couple days ago, so I do think Sam Howell is going to have a decent. Now, obviously, he's young. He's not on the best. It's a pretty bad offensive line. It's going to take some time. So I don't think he's going to do great or anything. But I do think he will be consistently average at least. He'll have some good games, have some bad games. But I do think he will be consistent in at least average. Like, I do think he'll be decent, and I do think he will shock some people there. Moving on to Derek Carr. Situation in New Orleans is pretty good. He does have a decent receiving core. Juwan Johnson, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed. But it's nothing special. Dennis Allen, I think that offense is going to be held back a little bit. Like I said, I could see Derek Carr going into the good category. I do think he has potential there, but for now, I think he's just going to be average. I think he's in a decent offense, but it's nothing special. Moving on to the next one, I have Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford, I almost wanted to put him in the bad category, but I felt like that would be way too low on him. I am kind of concerned with the elbow injury, seeing how he comes back, seeing how Cooper Kupp comes back. But other than Cooper Kupp, they really do not have that many weapons, serviceable weapons. They traded away Allen Robinson. So, I mean, I think he'll do okay. But, he's hitting that age where when you take some injuries to your throwing arm, it really does, kind of deflate your career because he's getting older. So, I'm curious to see how he comes back. If he comes back, he plays great. Cooper Kupp plays great. And that's great. I'm sure he'll be, at good or elite, even possibly by the end of the year. But as of now, I got to put him in the average just because I am a little worried about him and that injury. The offensive line is pretty bad as well. They did have some minor upgrades to it in the draft. They added Steve Avila, which I actually thought was a good pick. But other than that, it's still a pretty bad offensive line, and I am curious to see how Matthew Stafford does coming back from his injury. Moving on, though, we have Russell Wilson. Now, I think he could be in the good category, and I'm very torn because even now putting him in the average, actually, I'm going to put him in the good category later. So I'm going to save Russell Wilson for good because now that I'm thinking about it, I think he'll be in good. Moving on though to the next average person, I have Desmond Ridder. I think he is going to have the starting job over Taylor Heinicke, and I think there's a chance that this guy could be the long-term answer for Atlanta. I know a lot of people kind of wrote him off after last season, saying, he's not the guy, not the long-term guy. Some people wanted Atlanta to trade up in this year's draft to get a quarterback. They did not. They stuck with Bijan Robinson, but I do think they have the tools for him to have at least a decent season. That triple backfield with adding Cordero Patterson, Bijan Robinson, that is going to take a lot of pressure off, and they have a very good offensive line. The receiving corps is a little weak, though. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, they're both going to have to really step up into their second and third year. I think it's Kyle Pitts' third year, but either way, the receiving corps is going to have to step up a little bit. But I do think, we saw all the I think last year with all the run game, I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Desmond Ridder, and I think that's part of the reason they took Bijan Robinson is to take some pressure off of Desmond Ridder. So I do think the system he's in right now, I think it's good, and I think if he can develop, I do think he can have a decent second year as the now starting quarterback. Moving on, though, to the next average, I have Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be decent for the Raiders. I know not a lot of people were a big fan of it, as long as he can play, because there are rumors now that he may not pass his physical, and if he doesn't, he could be released, and the Raiders don't have to pay a dime to him. So that is going to be interesting. Granted, he does stay with the Raiders, which I think is still most likely. I think he'll do decent. I think the offense is pretty good. You had Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. There are rumors he gets traded. Jacoby Myers, and then Michael Mayer, who they added in the draft. It's not a bad offense at all. He's also reuniting with his former offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniels. Now he's the head coach, so there is some chemistry there from back when they were both in New England. So I do think there is potential for this offense to be good, and I do think Jimmy Garoppolo could have a good year. For right now, though, I'm going to put him in average. He hasn't shown anything super special over the last couple seasons, but I do think he has a pretty high ceiling with the Raiders. And then last but not least, in the average category, I have Bryce Young. I think he is going to be the best rookie quarterback this year. I think he's in the best situation. Good coaching staff. Pretty decent weaponry as well for the receiving core. Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, Hayden Hurst. Not bad at all. Also, DJ Chark, who they got from free agency. Not bad. Like I said, the all-rookie quarterbacks struggle, so I do think he's going to be kind of limited at what he can do. He was just elevated to the first-string practice reps at OTAs a couple days ago, so everything should be going as planned for Frank Reich and this Carolina offense. But like I said, he's a rookie. Everyone's going to struggle. And, I think that receiving core is good enough to help a rookie quarterback. It's nothing special. It's nothing great. It's nothing super scary, but I do think it's enough, and it's consistently good to where it will help Bryce Young to be at least consistently average. So I am pretty high on Bryce Young as the rookie one, or the best rookie quarterback this year. Moving on to good, I have Tua Tagovailoa. Now I think if Tua Tagovailoa can stay healthy, I think he could be elite just because of that receiving duo in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But because of the injuries he had last year, he was kind of sidelined for some of the season. If he can stay healthy, like I said, I think he'll be elite. But until I can see him stay healthy, I'm just going to put him in good. But like I said, if he's healthy, I think the ceiling is super high for him. Until then, though, I am going to put him in good. Moving on to Russell Wilson, same thing. I think Russell Wilson's going to have a great year. I think it's going to be a great bounce back for Russell Wilson in that receiving core and that offense on Denver, which was horrible last year. I think Sean Payton is going to fix it immediately. And I do think Russell Wilson is going to have a much better season. I think he will have a good year. Kirk Cousins, same thing. I think Kirk Cousins could be elite with that receiving core now. With the addition of Jordan Addison, it's a pretty good wide receiver trio, and Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and KJ Osborne, as well as TJ Hawkins, and he has all the weapons he needs. I think he's going to have a good season. Jared Goff, same thing. It was a bit of a bummer Jameson Williams was suspended another 6 games this year, because when he was playing last year for the few games he was very explosive. He caught a 60-yard touchdown or something, I remember. But that was a bit of a bummer. But I do think Jared Goff is going to have a good year. I think he's going to have one of his better years. I think one of his best seasons he's had so far in his career this upcoming season. I think he's going to have a great year, and I'm very excited to watch that. Daniel Jones, same thing. I think Daniel Jones is going to have the best season of his career right now. I know people were surprised how far the Giants went last year. I think it's going to be even better. That offense has made some major additions with this offense. They got John Michael Schmitz in the draft to get a good center. Darren Waller, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, all brought in over this offseason or in the draft. They just paid Daniel Jones a load of money. A lot of people call it an overpay. They're just confident in their guy, which I respect it. And I think Daniel Jones is going to have the best year of his career. Next up, Mac Jones. Same thing. I think he's going to have the best year of his career going into his third year, finally under a good offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien. Getting a good receiving core as well. There's a lot of rumors now that DeAndre Hopkins could be the favorite to land in New England, which I would love. I'm a Patriots fan, if you don't know. I would be ecstatic if that happened. And I do think with the receiving core, I think it's consistent enough. Tyquan Thornton looking to have a breakout year. Juju Smith-Schuster, a good slot receiver. And then if they could get DeAndre Hopkins under that new offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien, who's not a defensive coordinator, I think it's going to be a good year for Mac Jones. And I think he's going to have the biggest leap of his career so far. Next up, Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott could be elite this year. I know Dak Prescott gets hated on just because he's a Cowboy and his name's Dak Prescott. But I truly believe Dak Prescott could have an elite year with the signing of Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, 2 years out of his ACL injury. I think it's going to be a great offense for him, and I think he has all the tools he needs to be an elite quarterback. For now, I'm going to put him in good, but I do think within the next couple seasons he could, or like going into the season, I think he could definitely be elite. Next up, Trey Lance. I think he's going to be good. I was thinking about putting him in the average, but I think this is his chance. This is his year where he has a lot of pressure on it. Brock Purdy, everybody saw how good he was last year. Sam Darnold, a veteran quarterback. I think he has a lot of pressure on him this year, more than he has had in his first 2 years, and I think he's going to ball out. I think he's going to be good, and I think he's going to solidify himself as the starting quarterback for the Niners. Justin Fields, I'm very high on him. I think finally with some weapons and all the momentum the Bears have, I think he's going to live up to the hype. I don't think it's going to be a great year. I still think it's going to be ups and downs. The Bears still do have some holes on that offensive line, and it's not a great receiving core, but I think with DJ Moore, I think it's enough for Justin Fields to have a good year and kind of work his way around some of the flaws on that offense. And I'm very excited to watch Justin Fields this year. Kenny Pickett, same thing. I think Kenny Pickett's going to have a big jump in year 2. They added Broderick Jones, solidified that offensive line. That offensive line got very good this offseason, really helped the interior. And then, like I said, in the draft, they traded up for Broderick Jones. Also got better in receiver Allen Robinson, which not that means a lot, but it is nice to get another good wide receiver for them. Also having George Pickens going into his year 2. Hopefully he can have a big jump year with Kenny Pickett. So I am very excited to see this offense and see how it goes in 2023 with Kenny Pickett now. Moving on to the elite category, starting off, I have Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of people aren't very high on him, especially after last year, but I do have to give him a break for last year. He was dealing with all the lawsuits, hadn't touched the game in like 2 to 3 years, and was on an entirely new system. Now, though, I think he's going to be great. He has all the tools he needs. He has the top 3 offensive line. He has a great receiving core, and that was one thing the receiving core wasn't talked about a lot last year as being pretty bad. It was pretty bad besides Amari Cooper, but now he has Amari Cooper. They also added Elijah Moore in a trade, which I thought went kind of under the radar, but I did think it was a big trade this offseason, and then they added Cedric Tillman in the draft. 2 big signings, I thought, and I do think that receiving core is massively upgraded. They also have David Njoku, and like I said, a top 3 offensive line. I do think he is going to return to his form when he was in Houston, balling out, and I think he's going to be great. Moving on, though, Geno Smith. Geno Smith is my dark horse to finish as the quarterback 1 this upcoming season, which I know sounds crazy, and I don't think it's going to happen, but he is my dark horse candidate. He finished as QB 15 last season on PFF, but if you think about it, he was in a competition with Drew Lock last offseason for the starting job, and whoever was the quarterback, whoever won the starting job was, predicted to go like 3-14 maybe last year. Like there was no hype around him. Geno Smith, everyone was saying like, oh great, Seahawks season's over. They're projected to be a bottom 3 team in the league, and they made it to the playoffs. They didn't nearly. I mean, they lost to San Francisco, but they made it to the playoffs. Geno Smith balled out and was the quarterback 15 on PFF, and I think he was like even at one point like a top 10 quarterback. So my point is Geno Smith did great last season, and that offense has only gotten better. They got a receiving back in Zach Charbonnet in this draft, and now they also added Jackson Smith-Njigba. So you look at how great Geno Smith was last year, and everyone was saying he's going to be awful. Everyone was saying he's going to be a bottom 3 quarterback. Seahawks were going to be a bottom 3 team. Now you have a great duo backfield in Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, and then you add Jackson Smith-Njigba. So your receiving core is now Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and 2 serviceable tight ends who don't get a lot of credit, but Will Dissly and Noah Fant, who are both decent tight ends, both good tight ends. I think Geno Smith is definitely my dark horse to finish as QB1. Now, like I said, I don't think it's going to happen, but he is my dark horse to finish as quarterback 1 because you look at how much that offense has improved and how good he was last year, and now adding Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think he's going to be great, and I do think he's going to be an elite quarterback this year. Moving on, Josh Allen. I am pretty excited to watch him. Hopefully the turnover woes can end for Josh Allen this year. He said he wants them to. He said that I think it was Sean McDermott said they've been watching film like 3 to 4 hours a day on how he can improve on his, turnover problems. Added Dalton Kincaid. I think that's going to be kind of the Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce 2.0 type quarterback tight end duo. So I am very excited to see Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid. I would have liked to see them get a slot receiver in the draft this offseason because they lost Isaiah McKenzie. But other than that, I think they should be good. Hopefully, if Gabe Davis can be more consistent, I do think that will be a major addition to Josh Allen's receiving core as well. But I do think he will have another elite season. Trevor Lawrence, I've seen some people say they're not that high on Trevor Lawrence this year, and I don't understand why. I might be a little too high on him, but I could see him. He's another one of my dark horse candidates to finish as QB1. He was great last year. Now you're adding Calvin Ridley. You retained Evan Ingram for another season, and Calvin Ridley's looking great in OTAs. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to take even a bigger leap than he did last year in year 3. I think he's going to have a great year 3 and take a massive leap. And I'm very excited to see Trevor Lawrence. Lamar Jackson, he's back, and there are rumors that he may not even be a Raven coming into 2023, and now look at him. He's on, I think, one of the better offenses in the league. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr., and Mark Andrews. I think he has all the tools he needs to finish as a elite quarterback, and I think he is. I think he's going to prove it. I think he's going to go out there and prove why he is now the highest paid quarterback in the league, and I expect him to ball out and have an elite major comeback season. Jalen Hurts, now I'm putting him at the top of elite. Now these aren't really in order except for Jalen Hurts. I am very high on Jalen Hurts, and everyone likes to bring up the argument that, he's on a stacked team, which, yes, you could argue it's true, but the Eagles wouldn't be the Eagles without Jalen Hurts. And I don't care what you say. Very few quarterbacks could do what Jalen Hurts did last year. Someone said you could put Brock Purdy on the Eagles and he would have balled out. Someone said you could put Sam Darnold on the Eagles and he would have had Jalen Hurts numbers. I don't think that's true. And I seriously think by the end of this year, Jalen Hurts could finish as a top 3 quarterback. The progress and the progress Jalen Hurts has had over the first 3 years of his career is insane. And I'm very high on Jalen Hurts, and I think after this year, he's going to solidify himself as a no doubt top 5 quarterback. I think it's crazy that there's even a discussion he's not a top 5 quarterback, but without a doubt, I think he's going to solidify himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the league, no matter how good the Eagles are. Because yes, I'm not saying the Eagles aren't good, but you see the dual running and passing threat Jalen Hurts has, the accuracy he had last season. I mean, it's just, he can do it all, and I'm very high on Jalen Hurts, and I hope he has a incredible year, even better than he did last year. But anyways, moving on, Aaron Rodgers, my last elite quarterback. I think he's going to do great with Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson's going to have an even bigger year 2 than he did year 1, which is crazy because he won Offensive Rookie of the Year with Mike White and Zach Wilson throwing him the ball. Now Aaron Rodgers, and I saw in OTAs, I saw this on Twitter, he's actually starting to run Devontae Adams' favorite routes. So basically, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams 2.0 with Garrett Wilson, which I think is going to be very scary, especially because I'm a Patriots fan. I can't wait to have to deal with that 2 times a year, but I think he's going to do great. I think he also has some other good weapons. He has Allen Lazard coming over from Green Bay with him, Randall Cobb, Mecole Hardman coming over from Kansas City. I mean, he has a pretty good offense, and I'm very excited to see Aaron Rodgers, except when he plays the Patriots, obviously. But I am very excited to see Aaron Rodgers, and I do think he's going to be an elite quarterback. And then moving on to the top 3, starting off with Patrick Mahomes, obviously as the best quarterback in the league. Now, I will say this. Without a doubt, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league and one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in a while. I'm not discrediting him. I'm not discrediting last season. I think last season re-solidified him as the best quarterback in the league by a mile. But I will say I would not be surprised if this year was a bit of a, not like a reverse, he's not the best in the league, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's not putting up the same crazy numbers he was last year, just because this offense, it is pretty bad. Now, I will say, I said this last year when they lost Tyreek Hill, and look, they went and won the Super Bowl, no problem. So, I mean, I can't really doubt Patrick Mahomes after last season, but I do look at this receiving core for the Chiefs. Travis Kelce's getting older. I'm not discrediting Travis Kelce, but he's starting to get to that point where he is getting older, and there's no clear wide receiver 1 right now. Right now, it looks like it's really between any of them, Rashee Rice, or Sky Moore, or Kadarius Toney, which, I mean, it's not a super great receiving core. Hopefully Sky Moore can have a big year too. Kadarius Toney looking like he's going to be decent, but it's kind of unknown. And then Rashee Rice, not a lot of people were very high on that pick. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Travis Kelce is going to be great. I think he's going to be top 3. I think he's going to be the best quarterback in the league for years to come. Don't get me wrong. But I am saying I would not be surprised if it's not, I think I'm not as high on the Chiefs in general, not just Patrick Mahomes, but I'm not just high on the Chiefs in general, just because they have lost some superstars there. Orlando Brown, I think that's going to be kind of a rough adjustment, losing your star left tackle. But my point still, Patrick Mahomes is going to be the best quarterback in the league. I'm not as high on him as some people are, just because the situation around him has gotten even worse than last year. Moving on though to quarterback to Joe Burrow. Not much has changed, just adding Orlando Brown Jr., who they actually stole from the Chiefs, which was a big move. I think that's great. Now you get some protection there at left tackle, protecting his blind side. The receiving court's still the same. It's looking great. They did lose Hayden Hurst, which was a bit of a bummer, but they did they went out and signed Irv Smith over free agency. And I think if Irv Smith can stay healthy, I think that's a very underrated move. I think he's a good tight end. He just has some injury problems, but if he can stay healthy, I think he'll be great serving as a good tight end. And then finally, Justin Herbert. Herbert balled out last year, but because of all the injuries to him, he had the ribs. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen were both out. Rashawn Slater was out. That Chargers team in general dealt with so many injuries last year. Now you're getting your left tackle back, your star left tackle. You're getting Keenan Allen, Mike Williams back, and you added Quentin Johnson, who's like Mike Williams 2.0. I think Justin Herbert is another guy who I could definitely see finishing as QB1 this upcoming season. I think he's going to have an MVP season. And I actually think the Chargers are one of my Super Bowl teams right now that not a lot of people are talking about, and I get it. It's the same offseason hype with the Chargers every year. But I am very high on the Chargers now that their team is fully healthy. They added, like I said, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson in the draft. I'm very high on Justin Herbert, and I think he's going to have the best year of his career so far. All right, guys, there you all have it. That is my 2023 to 2024 NFL quarterback tier prediction video. This is not what I think, like, necessarily the quarterbacks rank, like, how they are, but I think how they're going to do in this upcoming season. I hope you guys did enjoy, and again, I apologize for the lack of videos over the last 2 weeks. I was out of state, and then I was in Disneyland. I do have company sitting with me right now for the next couple days, so not a lot of videos going to be coming out within the next, like, 2 to 3 days, but after that, I promise I will be getting a lot of videos out. I'm going to be covering the DeAndre Hopkins news as soon as he signs. Hopefully, he signs with the Patriots. There are rumors. I know he's visiting with them next week. He's visiting with the Titans. I think tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. I think Sunday or Monday he's visiting with the Titans, followed up by the Patriots, so I'll be covering that closely. Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, still a lot of big free agents out there. I'll be covering that and more over the next couple of weeks. OTAs are in full action, and then mandatory mini camps are starting within the next week as well. So a lot to cover. I'll be getting it all out as quick as possible, I promise. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. It's been your boy Jay Light. Make sure to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any future content. I'll see you all on the next one. Peace out, everybody.